towards the war in Europe. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is to travel to the United States to meet U.S. President Donald Trump this week. President Zelensky has stated that he would also hold talks with defense and energy companies as well as members of the Congress. He has further said that the main topic of discussion will be air defense and long-range capabilities. President Zelensky has stated that he shared with President Trump his vision over a phone call regarding the need for Tomahawk missiles. Trump has meanwhile stated that he could transfer Tomahawks if Russia does not stop the war. Ukraine is seeking further U.S. assistance to protect its electricity and gas networks, which have faced attacks from the Russian side. The recent strikes on Ukrainian energy grids are attributed to the drone attacks by Russia. There are in fact reports that China has helped Russia in gaining an advantage in the battlefield as well. All right, viewers, speaking of China helping Russia gaining an advantage on the front line, there's a fresh report that has now emerged that China has materially helped Russia gain an advantage in its grinding war against Ukraine. Beijing has dramatically increased its exports over the summer of key components needed to make fiber optic drones. That is not all. Chinese sales of lithium-ion batteries to Russian drone makers has also surged over the summer. Now, Beijing claims that it is neutral in the conflict, and despite the no-limits friendship between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, Beijing has not sent any military hardware to help Moscow's fight. In fact, last year itself, China stated that it would restrict exports of drones and drone parts with military applications. Additionally, Chinese manufacturers, which account for about 80% of the global commercial drone market, have reduced their direct exports of ready-made drones to Russia. However, official Chinese trade data now shows that it has allowed a sharp increase in the components that are enabling Russian manufacturers to build fiber optic drones. Now, these drones are being increasingly used by Moscow because they are less susceptible to interception. Now, according to data from China's Customs Office, Chinese shipments of fiber optic cables to Russia have grown almost tenfold between July and August. This is after hitting record highs in May and then again in June. In August itself, China exported record lengths of fiber optic cables to Russia amounting to 328,000 miles. Now, in contrast, its supply to Ukraine is a mere fraction. China sold only 72 miles of cables to Ukraine in August. This, of course, is having significant implications on the battlefield, as lighter and longer cables have allowed Russia to expand its range of attacks further into Ukrainian territory. Meanwhile, exports of lithium-ion batteries used to power the drones also shot up over the summer. Now, to put this into perspective, lithium-ion batteries and their exports to Russia stood at a record $54 million in June before dipping slightly to $47 million in August. This has coincided with Russia stepping up its aerial assault in Ukraine. Exports of lithium-ion batteries to Ukraine, meanwhile, tracked only $11 million to $12 million a month over the same period. Now, the United States and EU have imposed multiple rounds of sanctions on Russian and Chinese companies, but this has done little to slow the flow of items that can be used for both civilian and military purposes, such as these cables and batteries. All right, viewers, it's a wrap on the China report on NewsX World.